What's up, guys? Day 4 of the making the E36 Great Again project. Hopefully today we can get the M54 in, and before we do that we have to bolt the gearbox on, get the clutch taken care of, or pedals taken care of, and hopefully that's all we have to do today. All today on Bab and Beyond. Alright, so we're gonna go get some parts from the nearest dealership. We're still missing the bolts for the pressure plate. They're little hex things. So far everything's going so good. We ordered some parts from FCP Euro. Those came in last night, and hopefully we can get the motor in the car today so we can start working on wiring. We still have to get the pedals in and the hydraulic clutch line before we put the gearbox in, otherwise we won't have access to it. We also have to remember, once we pull out the pedals, we won't have a brake pedal, so we can't stop the car. That's something that we should probably keep in mind. So off to the dealership. I have the pressure plate right here. It's not too bad. I cleaned it up a little bit, and usually you would use a clutch alignment tool to hold the clutch in place while you tighten the pressure plate down. If you don't have said tool, then you kind of have to see if you can center it by hand and by eye. We're doing this out of the car, so if we screw it up, it's easy to loosen it and try again. But yeah, by yourself, the clutch alignment tool makes it a lot easier. I gotta try and hold it with this breaker bar while I put the pressure plate on. I don't think it's going to work at all. Yeah, that's not gonna work at all. I should also probably orient it correctly. That would help. Yeah. If you get the alignment wrong, you won't be able to get the spline on the gearbox to line up. So yeah, let's see how this goes. I really have no idea. So I'm going to line up the pressure plate. Slowly start threading in our pressure plate bolts. These are new. You're going to want to put these on in a star pattern, and as you start tightening them, you won't be able to move the clutch anymore, so you're going to want to make sure it's centered before you actually tighten them. Not the recommended way to do it, but it is a way to do it. This seems to be a reoccurring theme here. If you're really on a budget and you do want to reuse these, you can probably get away with just putting some blue Loctite on them, but these were 90 cents each, so it's probably better just to replace them. So the alignment isn't mission critical, because the first time you step on the clutch and release the pressure plate, it will naturally just center itself, especially since the end of the input shaft on the gearbox is held in by a bearing, the pilot bearing, another thing you should replace, and the throw-up bearing. This is the throw-up bearing I pulled out of the that came with the transmission, and it's a very, I mean, it'll probably still work, but it's very loud and eventually would fail. So always replace the throw-up bearing, hence the name, you throw it out, and the pilot bearing that goes inside the end of the crankshaft whenever you do a clutch job. You should also probably resurface or replace your flywheel and replace the pressure plate, but because we're using a used clutch and flywheel and pressure plate, it's probably not necessary. And the rear main seal, it's also a good time to change it. We're not changing it only because by the time this clutch wears out, the rear main seal will probably still be holding, so it's not mission critical.
We fell out of love like shooting stars, came crashing down, and we're building back up again now.
So now's actually a perfect time to show how a clutch actually works. Right here we have our gearbox, and inside we have our throw-out bearing, our pivot fork, and our pivot points under this. So basically what happens is when you press your clutch pedal, if it's a hydraulic clutch system, the slave cylinder pushes right here, which pushes on the throw-out bearing, which is spinning with the motor. That throw-out bearing then pushes on the pressure plate springs right here, and that actually releases the clutch, and the clutch is then free to spin. That's one of the reasons why they don't recommend you holding the clutch down while you're sitting at the traffic light, because you're putting wear on this bearing. Because this bearing only spins when you hit the clutch, otherwise it is not making contact with the pressure plate. So now we're going to bolt up the engine to the transmission, and hopefully it'll go nice. We didn't use a clutch alignment tool, so it might be tricky to get it on, but we'll make it work. Alright guys, so we got the gearbox on, and it actually lined up with the clutch, even though I didn't use a fancy alignment tool, which is good. We reused the old bolts from the M52, they are the same. Hopefully the gearbox won't fall out on the highway while we're driving. And it's time to do some maintenance on this motor. So we got a couple of seals you want to change and gaskets, so oil pan gasket and oil filter housing gasket in particular. There's some vacuum lines that are broken that are really easy to change now and really hard to change later, so we're going to do that right away. And hopefully by the end of today, this motor will be in that car. So now it's time to lift this motor up and prepare for putting it in the car. So usually, if you're doing this correctly, you grab it by the two lifting points on the motor. But I don't have a hook big enough for the back one. And the back one's kind of hard to reach when the intake manifold's on. So I'm doing it the ghetto way with this tow rope. This is one of those times where I'm going to say, do as I say, not as I do. Don't do this. This is not exactly what I call safe. But it is a way to do it, so put the motor in. This is the oil filter housing on an M54, and basically the way it works is you get oil coming in from the sump through here, it runs through the filter and then goes to the rest of the motor through here, and this gasket keeps everything happy, and when it fails you lose oil, a lot of oil, puddles. So just changing this gasket while it's easy out of the motor, and already you can tell that this is no longer rubber. This rubber is now has turned into plastic, because it's not pliable at all, and it won't even come out of the gasket hole. I mean, I'm having a lot of trouble just getting the old gasket out and breaking into pieces. This is probably original to the car, and the previous owner probably just kept on adding oil instead of replacing the gasket, which is good and bad. It's good because it means the oil was always fresh. It's just bad because maintenance was probably neglected, but the motor so far looks healthy. Yeah, this is coming out honestly. This if you didn't tell me this was rubber, I would think it's plastic, because I really can't even get it out of the groove. But we got a new gasket, so we're going to replace this, put this back on, replace the oil pan gasket, and then hopefully get the motor in the car before it gets too cold. Just taking the oil pan off real quick to see what the motor looks like underneath and replace the gasket, because once it's in the car it's a major hassle to replace. Ask me how I know. All the bolts are off, and the only thing holding it right now is oil. I think that's the only thing holding it. So let's see if I can get it off.
You take me higher. Let's make the night and kiss the day. Your heart's a fire. I feel fire. Let's kiss the night and kiss the day.
So we've taken off the oil pan. We're doing the oil pan gasket now because it's really easy. And I wanted to just point out one major failure of these motors and S52s for that matter is the oil pump. Because what basically happens is the crankshaft starts resonating once you start exceeding about 6,500 RPM, and it will basically cause this nut to back itself off. The sprocket will come off, and your oil pump is no longer spinning at 7,000 RPM, and the motor will seize in about that long. There's a couple of solutions. None of them are really ideal. The easiest solution is just to tack weld it or wire tie it, and Beamer World actually sells a pre-drilled nut. Another thing you can do is to replace the oil pump, the actual sprocket where it attaches to the pump. They sell pretty sure, can't remember the name at this point, but they sell a slightly thicker one. But that's also failed in actual racing applications. But for the street, it'd probably be overkill. And the last solution, and probably the best solution, is the Greg Smith oil pump. It's a complete redesign of the entire pump, and it's so far been so good from what I've heard. So if you are going to be using this for a track car, you're going to want to upgrade your oil pump and your oil pump nut at least to handle the duties of high RPM. Not to mention, if you're going to be spinning it that high for that long, you're going to want to look at some cams, because these cams start falling off once you hit the higher revs. So let's do this oil pan gasket. We already did the oil filter housing gasket, almost. We just have to bolt the thing back on, and that should be it. We should be ready to actually start putting the motor in the car. Let's do it. Alright guys, day 4 or 5. I've lost count by this point. Anyway, so we have the engine up in the air, and we got the pedals out. So we just have to get the motor mount off the old motor, the actual arm, and transplant it onto our new motor. We have to, we've routed our clutch line, the hard line. It's about time, once we get the motor mount on, to put the motor in the car, and hopefully it'll go off without a hitch.
Yeah, like the attention, girl, I know you. But you're everything I want in life. We're fighting danger like kung fu. The love I feel is deep inside. The others don't matter. It's honestly us against the world.
Time's come, moment of truth. We're gonna try and stick it in the car, see what happens.
If you ever need a helper, you should know that I'll be there day and night. Nobody else can love you better. I'm here just to treat you right. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the only pain I can endure. And when you're not here, you're my dream, but I just wanna. Yeah, I just wanna. You're my dream, but I just wanna.
So it looks like the M54 is in. We still have to bolt the transmission cross member up to hold this thing in place, but after that we have to order some parts. We're missing a couple of little details. Pedals in particular, we're missing some screws, but we did route our clutch hydraulic line, so that's good. The only thing really left is to get some exhaust gaskets. You can start putting the exhaust back, but before that we have to still source a drive shaft. We have our new diff and the shift linkage. We have to source that, so hopefully we'll get that in the next couple of days. And thanks for watching, guys, and I want to thank everybody who is subscribed, because we've officially hit 10,000 plus subscribers, so that's pretty impressive. That's thanks to all you guys, and hopefully we'll have more cool videos on the channel for you all. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and if you want to see what happens behind the scenes, like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. Links are in the description, and we'll catch you next time.